A passenger plane takes off on a normal night. Less than an hour later, it completely disappears from the sky. No distress call. No confirmed crash site. 239 people, gone. To this day, nobody can say for sure what really happened. Tonight, we're diving into one of the biggest mysteries in modern aviation. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. What really happened to the plane that vanished without a trace? Welcome to Mysterious Globe. If you enjoy real-life mysteries, dark stories, and unexplained events, make sure to subscribe and stay until the end, because this story only gets stranger the deeper we go. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 was a scheduled international passenger flight from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to Beijing, China. On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members, 239 people in total. Families were expecting a normal overnight flight. Nothing special. Just another long journey through the night sky. But for everyone on MH370, this flight never arrived. At first, everything looked completely normal. MH370 took off at 12:41 a.m. local time. The plane climbed to its cruising altitude, around 35,000 feet. Just after 1:19 a.m., as the plane was about to leave Malaysian airspace and enter Vietnamese airspace, the co-pilot made the last known voice transmission. He calmly said, "Good night, Malaysian 370. This was the last time anyone on the ground heard the voice of the crew. Only a minute or two after that final message, something strange happened. The plane's transponder, the device that sends information like altitude and speed to air traffic control, suddenly stopped working. On civilian radar screens, MH370 simply disappeared. No Mayday. No emergency message. No sign of trouble. At first, air traffic controllers thought it might be a technical glitch. But then radar data from the military revealed something even more disturbing. According to military radar, after disappearing from civilian radar, flight MH370 didn't just vanish. It turned. Instead of continuing northeast towards Beijing, the plane made a sharp turn back over the Malay Peninsula. It then flew west, across the Malaysian Peninsula, and out over the Andaman Sea. For hours, MH370 continued flying, following a strange and unexpected path. No one on the ground was in contact with the pilots. No one knew what was happening inside the cabin. But the plane was still in the air, until it finally disappeared off military radar as well. Once the world realized the plane was missing, one of the largest search operations in history began. Dozens of ships, planes, and submarines from multiple countries joined the search. At first, the search focused on the South China Sea. But later, based on satellite data from a company called Inmarsat, investigators believed the plane had flown south into the Indian Ocean. Search teams scanned vast areas of ocean floor, thousands of kilometers from land. For years, they looked. A few pieces of debris, parts of the plane believed to be from MH370, were later found washed up on beaches in the western Indian Ocean and on the coast of Africa. But the main wreckage, the fuselage, the wings, the black boxes, have never been found. Without them, there is no clear answer to what truly happened in the final moments. The first and most simple theory is that MH370 suffered a catastrophic technical failure. Some experts think there might have been a fire on board, maybe in the cargo hold or the electronics bay. A fire could have damaged the communications systems and slowly filled the cabin with smoke. If everyone on board was incapacitated by smoke or a loss of oxygen, the plane could have continued flying on autopilot for several hours, until it finally ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. This is called a ghost flight. We've seen similar situations in aviation before. But this theory leaves many questions. Why did the plane make such sharp and controlled turns? Why were multiple communication systems disabled at almost the same time? A random technical failure usually doesn't look so intentional. This brings us to one of the most controversial theories. Did someone in the cockpit deliberately change the course of the flight? Investigations looked closely at the captain, Zaharia Ahmad Shah. At his home, they found a flight simulator with some routes that went into the Indian Ocean, similar to where MH370 is believed to have ended up. Some people believe this could mean he was practicing a suicide route. According to this theory, the pilot may have waited until the plane reached cruising altitude, then disabled communication systems and turned the aircraft towards the Indian Ocean, flying until it ran out of fuel. However, this theory has serious problems. People who knew the captain described him as calm, professional and not suicidal. No clear motive has ever been proven. And even if he did plan it, why leave almost no trace and no explanation? To this day, there is no solid evidence confirming that the pilot intentionally crashed the plane. It remains only a. Another theory is hijacking. Could someone have taken control of the plane, forced the pilots to change direction, and kept it flying for hours? In the days after the disappearance, authorities investigated the passengers. There were 2 men with stolen passports, which led to fears of terrorism. But no solid links to terrorism were ever found. No group claimed responsibility. There were no demands, no threats, no messages. Normally, in a terrorist attack, the goal is attention, public fear, a political message, or leverage. Here, there was only silence. If it was a hijacking, it was the strangest one in history. Another theory is hijacking. Could someone have taken control of the plane, forced the pilots to change direction, and kept it flying for hours? In the days after the disappearance, authorities investigated the passengers. There were 2 men with stolen passports, which led to fears of terrorism. But no solid links to terrorism were ever found. No group claimed responsibility. There were no demands, no threats, no messages. Normally, in a terrorist attack, the goal is attention, public fear, a political message, or leverage. Here, there was only silence. If it was a hijacking, it was the strangest one in history. Another theory is hijacking. Could someone have taken control of the plane, forced the pilots to change direction, and kept it flying for hours? In the days after the disappearance, authorities investigated the passengers. There were 2 men with stolen passports, which led to fears of terrorism. But no solid links to terrorism were ever found. No group claimed responsibility. There were no demands, no threats, no messages. Normally, in a terrorist attack, the goal is attention, public fear, a political message, or leverage. Here, there was only silence. If it was a hijacking, it was the strangest one in history. So what do we actually know? We know that MH370 took off normally. We know its transponder stopped sending signals shortly after the last radio message. We know the plane turned and flew in a different direction than planned. We know it likely continued flying for several hours. We know that pieces believed to be from the plane washed up in the western Indian Ocean. And we know that 239 people never came home. But what we don't know is just as important. We don't know for sure who was in control of the plane in its final hours. We don't know exactly why communication stopped. We don't know the exact crash site. And without the black boxes and main wreckage, we don't know the full truth. More than 10 years later, the disappearance of Flight MH370 remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation history. Families are still waiting for answers. Investigators are still arguing over data and theories. And the ocean keeps its secrets. Was it a tragic accident? A carefully planned act? A chain of failures we still don't fully understand? Until the wreckage and black boxes are found, we may never have a complete answer. What do you think happened to Flight MH370? Let me know your theory in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the world's darkest mysteries, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Mysterious Globe, and turn on notifications. There are many more stories out there, waiting to be uncovered.